Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon. Were you blessed today with lunch? Were you blessed today with breakfast? What was breakfast? Breakfast was Sabbath school class, right? And then we have lunchtime, which was for divine service, and now we have dessert. And I want to read something before we start. I received this from a friend of mine. I think it's kind of timely, so I want to share it with you all. And there's three quotes I want to read, actually two Bible texts I want to read in this quote. The quote comes from Testimonies, Volume 9, Chapter 11. And listen to this. More and more, as the days go by, it is becoming apparent that God's judgments are on the world. Testimonies, Volume 9. I'm not sure on the page. It just says Chapter 11. But if you were to go ahead and let's say encapsulate more and more and look it up on your Ellen G. White, you can find it from that. All right? So more and more as the days go by, it is becoming apparent that God's judgments are in the world. Now, I don't know about you, but I just found out yesterday or last night that an earthquake hit Mexico. It's like 8.4 or 8.1. I don't care what point it was. 8.0 is bad, right? So we're seeing these things, and of course, as Walt mentioned earlier, we have three hurricanes back to back to back, and I know that the one Jose is going to hit some of the same exact islands that were hit. Okay, so it says, in fire and flood and earthquake, he is warning the inhabitants of this earth of his near approach. And I'm reminded that I've heard recently that we are no longer to say that Jesus is coming soon. We're to say it's imminent. But I believe Jesus is coming soon, and if you died tomorrow, he came for you. So you're done right there, right? So be ready all the time. Okay, it says, He is warning the inhabitants of this earth of his near approach. The time is nearing when the great crisis in the history of the world will have come, when every moment, every movement in the government of God will be watched with intense interest and inexpressible apprehension. In quick succession, the judgments of God will follow one another. Fire and flood, earthquakes, with war and bloodshed. Now, so far we've only seen these few, but war and bloodshed are coming. And so we must be ready all the time. The next one I got was a warning and the solution. The warning, Psalms 119, 120. My flesh trembleth for fear of thee, and I am afraid of thy judgments. Now, we can be afraid. Well, should we be afraid of the judgments of God? We shouldn't be afraid, right? But we are afraid. Why? Because we're not ready. And that's pure and simple. We're just not ready. It says, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. O generation of vipers, who hath warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Amos 5:18 and Matthew 3:7. And then it gives a solution. It says, from that time Jesus began to preach and to say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. So through Jesus Christ, we have this hope. Through Jesus Christ, we can't really worry about what's coming to us. Through Jesus Christ, we look to him as the author and a finisher of our faith. Shall we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, as we come to you, we want to thank you for such a wonderful Sabbath. Thank you, dear Lord, for the messages that we've heard thus far. And I pray, dear Lord, that we would just not look at these messages as how I look at as a baby takes candy from a mother. When it's finished, it's finished. I pray we look at these messages as something we can take home to ourselves. We can share them with those around us. Share them on Facebook, share them on YouTube, whatever it is, but share these messages. They are timely. And we are seeing that you are pulling back the protection that you have had for so many years against the United States. The time is to get ready now. The time to leave the cities is now. I'm thinking about the ones that are in South Florida that did not leave. They're going to hold through the hurricane and they might not make it. And if they want to leave, they can't leave because there's no gas and because there's too many cars on the road and they're just stuck. Dear Lord, we want to be ready now. We want to be ready for whatever is coming our way. Help us to put our hands into yours and guide us every step of the way. Be with Walt as he presents this last session on cancer, attacking cancer, dear Lord. Many of us know friends and family that have cancer, and there is your way. Be with Walt as he presents, for we ask in your name. Amen.
I think probably every one of us knows someone who has cancer, had cancer, if not family members. Cancer is when someone comes in with cancer, I tell them I don't like working with cancer. But I tell them that I have 100% guarantee of healing with cancer. They look at me. And I have a friend, he's a physician. I told him that I tell people that. And he goes, how can you do that? You can't do that. I said, sure I can. He says, how can you guarantee 100% healing? I said, God will heal them in some time if they're following Him. Amen. And they choose Him. A lady came last year. She had cancer. She's Jewish. She's just a person that comes in and didn't want help with the cancer. Didn't do anything. Just didn't do anything. And Jewish folks, many of them don't believe in anything after death. And so when they die, that's it. So they're clawing on to life. The family's clawing on to them. When I was in West Palm, we had many, many Jewish patients, many Holocaust survival patients. And when they die, it was just tough because they just had no hope that we have, that blessed hope. And that's what you first have to look at when you look at cancer. Because you can have a person that has what appears to be identical cancer, and you use the same thing, and one lives and one doesn't. It's not you. It's not drugs that heal cancer. It's not herbs that heal cancer. It's not juicing that heals cancer. It's God that heals cancer. And we do what we know, ask God to bless it, and it's up to Him from that point forward. And yes, we want to do as much as we know, but ultimately, you can have the best, whatever would work. But again, it's not that's healing, it's God. So that's His choice, is my understanding. Cancer, CDC says that in 2013, it's the last numbers, they're so late putting things out. In 2013, it was the second largest killer. It's second to heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. Cancer was killing 584,881 people. Now, if you had something that was killing 584,881 people a year, you would think that would get the law's attention. That's equivalent to 1,406 747 crashes. 1,406 747 crashes. That would get people's attention at FAA if an airline lost that many airplanes, 747s. The sad thing is there are people that are finding things that are working, that cancer is reversing, that God's blessing. And it's tough for me to look at a lot of the conventional that's being used. When we look at the causes of cancer, I personally believe the biggest cause is stress. Stress wipes out your immune system. And the immune system that God gave us, it's fighting all the time. It could be fighting cancer cells in your body right now. And it's very strong, but stress wipes out your immune system. Dr. Neil Nedley says just 1 minute of anger in his book, Proof Positive, just 1 minute of anger wipes out your immune system significantly for 6 hours. 6 hours. So you're driving down the road and someone pulls in front of you and you get a little road rage. Boom. It's out for 6 hours. You're on the phone and a customer or a client calls you or someone calls you or an employer or whoever, or a spouse or a child, and you get angry. According to the research Dr. Nedley found, 1 minute of anger will wipe out your immune system for 6 hours significantly. Stress wipes out nutrients, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin Bs, magnesium, just many things in our body that helps us to be strong from an immune standpoint. And I think that's a huge issue. Which law of health would you say addresses stress? Trust in divine power. Trust in God. Yes. So when you're stressed, your best attack is what? Trust in God. Just give it to Him. You know, you've got a little kid, and you're walking along. I have a little grandson, Kyler. He's 2.5 years old. And we're walking along, and he gets scared. I say, it's okay, Kyler. Granddaddy's got it. Does he have to worry? I mean, he doesn't have to worry about that, whatever that he may perceive as a 2.5-year-old. I got it. Even more so, God's got it. Now, let's say that you were going somewhere. We were talking this morning about the city or the country. For me, if it's me going to the city, I get stressed. For some here, it's going to the country, you get stressed. But let's say you've got this big old Navy SEAL, and he's got a 50 cal, and he knows all kinds of things. And do you feel more safe? Is that bear going to bother you? Is that rattlesnake going to bother you? Or for me, as I go into the city, is that gang going to bother you? I go down to Mississippi sometimes to, it's called Hancock County, Mississippi. It's right on the Pearl River. East Hancock Fire Department. We go down and help them out. Since Katrina, they've had some challenges with volume of firefighters. We'll go down and help them. We'll run runs on I-10, and we'll run medical calls over to the port where they have a bunch of, they got 10 different huge places over there at the port that ships come into, and we'll run medicals, run fires with them. Well, you can literally walk out the bay onto the apron of the fire hall and look down, and you see the Pearl River, and you can see Louisiana. That's how close you are to Louisiana. Well, up and down the Pearl River, the United States SEALs go up and down that river, and they're practicing. Their base is just up the river. Well, one night, the SEALs were going up and down, and they'll stop. There's this little gas station, probably just a couple blocks from the fire station, where the road goes across the Pearl River into Louisiana. And there's right on the Mississippi side, there's this little old country gas station that they go in there and they get soft drinks or whatever. And so the Navy SEALs come up, and several of the guys get up and they walk up. The rest of them stay with the boats, and they walk up there to go get some snacks. And they walk up to an armed robbery. Two local boys was holding up this little local store. Who do you think won? Those Navy SEALs won. They had their weapons with them. It was hands down. They tied them boys up, hog-tied them, tied their feet behind them, and I mean, it was like that. It was taken care of. So you're walking down New York City, or you're walking down the country, whichever one, and you've got this huge old Navy SEAL. Are you as afraid? No. Well, you've got something bigger than a Navy SEAL. You got you an angel.
Amen.
Do you not? And if you need more, you just ask for it.
That's right.
Is that what we're told? We just got to trust. And that's so important when it comes to cancer, because people who have stress, anxiety, they're raising that cortisol, and it's wiping out their immune system. So as we look at prevention, I believe that managing stress, there's going to be stress. Excuse me. There's going to be stress in life if we're alive. That's just part of it. We're taught in school there's something called eustress, and that's supposed to be good for us. The second thing is nutrition. I think nutrition has a huge impact on the potential of getting cancer. There's foods that are carcinogenic. Can you tell me what food Cornell University has found is the most significant carcinogen ever discovered? Casein. Casein is 78% of the protein in dairy. Dairy isn't cheese, but it's also milkshakes, cheesecake, ice cream, butter. Dairy, according to Cornell University and Cambridge University, is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. And they go on to say they did the very best research, peer-reviewed, published in the very best cancer journals, their results. But it tastes so good. Well, it does. I enjoyed eating cheese. I enjoyed eating ice cream. But is it worth it? Folks in my neck of the woods would say moonshine tastes good. Does that mean you're going to do it? People doing drugs that say drugs feel good. Are you going to do it? No. So just because it feels good, remember that back in the 70s, feels good, do it? No. Just because it feels good doesn't mean we want to do it. Nutrition, I think, significantly can affect chances of cancer. The poor nutrition, the lack of nutrients, which we call calorie dense. We need foods that are nutrition dense, not calorie dense. And that nutrition is needed to keep our immune system up. I have several friends that work a lot with cancer, and they will tell you that women are susceptible or more susceptible to types of cancer, especially breast cancer, they tell me, when there's stuff going on up here. And as they treat patients, females with breast cancer, and they don't have the results, and I've found it so true myself as I work with ladies with breast cancer. I'll sit down and I'll say, is there anything going on that you have a challenge with somebody that you haven't forgiven them? It could be your mama. It could be a prior spouse, a current spouse, a school teacher, an old girlfriend, your husband's old girlfriend, whatever. Y'all know how your heads work. And they start crying. Yes, there is somebody. And these friends of mine have found when they can forgive that person, let it go, they find improvement in the breast cancer going away. This is very important, y'all. Huge in dealing with our immune system, our thoughts. There's people, how many of y'all, I don't know if any of y'all knew Elder Stuart Crook. Any of y'all knew Stuart Crook? Elder Crook was at GCA when I was there, and he told a story about this guy from New York City, and he was on the way upstate New York towards Utica area, and he's driving along. It's February. One road's cleared, one lane's cleared, and it gets cold up there and a lot of snow. And he's driving along, and it's about 11 o'clock at night, and he gets a flat tire. And so he gets out, he goes back to the back, the spare's there, and he goes to get the jack, and it's gone. He forgot he left it out where he was working on his other vehicle. He has no jack. What am I going to do? It's 11 o'clock at night. It's February. Y'all know how cold it is up in that area. I've seen it 40 below up there before. It's cold. It's just before 11, not quite 11. It's about 10 minutes till. What am I going to do? I can't sit in the car all night. I'll freeze. I can't run the car. I'll run out of gas or asphyxiate myself. And right down the road, he sees a light. What's my choice? He's from the city. This is the country up in that area of New York. He starts walking. There's no way they're going to open that door for me. At his apartment back in New York City, he's got multiple locks. Multiple locks. No way is that person going to open the door for him. He's walking and he's walking. And about 11 o'clock, boop, the light went off in the house. Now what's he do? Was he going to freeze, go back to the car? So he keeps walking. There's no way they're going to let me use that jack. There's just no way. He keeps walking. I wouldn't open the door. Why would they open the door? He walks. He walks. Finally gets up to the door. Do I knock on the door? They're going to cuss me out. I know it. They're going to cuss me out when I knock on this door. No way. But what's his choice? So he knocks on the door. No way are they going to let me. Man comes to the door. Can I help you? Fine, I don't want to use your jack anyway. Do we ever do that? You know what I'm saying? We've got this thing in our head and we just know the answer, or we know that person's mad at us. Bob Jorgensen's church. They used to have fellowship dinner and just put everything out there. Well, it was kind of became a problem. We ate kind of like I did today. Y'all filled my plate plumb full today. Then gave me 2 desserts. Well, they used to have all that food and oh, you just fill it up, and there'd be, you know, several lasagnas and several of this and several of this and several of this. And the ladies had a problem. Us fellas didn't have this problem I'm about to tell you about. See, I better take Susie's lasagna, because if I don't, she'll think I'm mad at her. So I'll take a little Susie. And here's Ellen's, and I better get some of Ellen's, and I'll get some. And finally, that plate's plumb full. And so the ladies realized what they were doing to us, to them and to us. So they decided to have a fellowship dinner day that just was by just like y'all do, haystacks, or Mexican, or Italian, or American, or whatever. And they only let out 1 lasagna at a time, 1 spaghetti at a time, 1 of this at a time. And so whatever you came through, that's all you got, just like y'all did today. You know, there wasn't a whole bunch of different sauces or a whole bunch. No, there's just 1, okay? And there's just 1 pot of beans, okay? And so it made it different. It took that, I don't want to offend that person. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes this can be our worst enemy. And so as we look at stress, we've got to get stress under control if we want to fight cancer or prevent cancer. Exercise. Following New Start. As I mentioned this morning, when I talk with people about health, the New Start, nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, fresh air, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trusting God, that's just a given. And then we do extra stuff on top of that. You've got to do New Start. You've got to have that whole food plant-based diet. You've got to have that regular exercise program. You've got to have that sunshine. Sunshine is critical to your immune system and more important to this church than some of the other churches. Why? Pardon? What's that? No sun? Okay, what's different in some of the members here and some of the other members here? Color, the pigment of the skin. The darker the pigment, the slower the conversion. As ultraviolet rays hits the skin, it converts the cholesterol into vitamin D. If you're from Jamaica and you're very dark, it's going to take longer than if your skin's more brown. Or if you're from Asia and it's even lighter brown. Or if it's like myself. One day this man comes in the store and his 2 daughters, or a granddaughter and grandson was with him. And my daughter Ashley comes out and she looks at him, and I just know Ashley, and I knew she was very concerned. And then she looked at me like, Dad, what's wrong with these kids? They were as white as your shirt. As white as your shirt. And I knew her concern. She thought something was wrong with them. She'd never seen people that white. And I said, Ashley, this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so and so-and-so. They're from Alaska. Way up in Alaska. And they were just plumb white. And so they're not going to have to have as much as me, because it takes my process longer than them. That's just the way God made us. You've got to have sunshine, because sunshine is a direct relationship with vitamin D. And that vitamin D is a direct relationship with your immune system. Very, very important. It's not a 32 we're looking for. We're looking for 100. And if you're fighting cancer, there's a doctor here in this town in Atlanta that she's shooting for a blood level of 210. 205 to 210. And she's seeing cancer, it attacking the cancer. Vitamin D is very important for the immune system. But we could go through those, but let's do more aggressive things. And Roy, how much time do we have? Okay, great. A lady came in one day and asked what we could do for her mother. Her mother had cancer. And I just moved to where we are now. And I said, she says, just give me something that she'll do. Give me something simple that we can afford that she'll do. I said, juicer. She says, I don't have a juicer. And I just bought Mary Lou 2 new Champion juicers. I said, here's our old one. We bought it used. I said, use it. I didn't get her name. I didn't get her address. I didn't get her phone number. She said she lived in our community. I said, here, use this, bring it back. She left. Didn't see her. Mary Lou says, you lost my juicer. A year and a half later, the lady comes walking in the door. And I'm standing here, and she walks in the door, carrying this juicer. And it looked like she threw it off the side of the mountain and it hit every rock on the way down. And I mean, that thing was barked up. She said, I bet you didn't think you'd ever see this again. I said, I wondered where it went. And she says, Mama don't have cancer no more. Now, did the juice heal her mama? God healed her mama. I brought on a guy, I hired a guy out of out of Philadelphia. His name was Dr. Joel Arcilla. He was the top surgeon in his field because I wanted better outcome indicators. We had good outcome indicators, but I wanted better. I believe you got to be better today than yesterday and better tomorrow than today. Continual improvement. If you want to learn about that, read a little book called pH 100, Testimonies to the Physicians and Helpers of the Sanitarium. Testimonies to the Physicians and Helpers of the Sanitarium. It was written back in, I believe, like 1877, 1878. And it woke up Kellogg, it woke up Battle Creek to start doing research. TQM, CQI was not Covey or Deming. It was God telling Battle Creek, wake up, do continuous quality improvement. So I hired this guy, he came in, and because his numbers were better than ours, and I said, what are you doing different? He says, I juice people. I said, teach me. So we started juicing our patients, especially our cancer patients, or any autoimmune disease. It works very, very well. You can watch the video or movie. It's a documentary out of Australia, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Who's seen that one? It's good, yeah. If you go to www, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, or you can go to Netflix. If you watch documentaries on there, you can go to that. And it helps you better understand juicing. And it really works. I had a lady come in one day. She was 45 years old, nursing her 8th child. She called me first and said, Walt, she said, I have a type of cancer that my oncologist at Norfolk, near Virginia Beach, Norfolk, said that's incurable. Never in the history has they ever cured this type of cancer by chemo, radiation, or anything. And he told me, just go home because I'm nursing my 8th child. She says, I need help. Will you take me? She says, I have 8 children. I have a husband to take care of. I have to live. I said, come on. So she weaned the child, and she came and stayed with us November and December. We were in Virginia. And we juiced her. We did the juicing. We did 8 ounces every hour for 12 hours. Some places do it for 13 hours. Total calories was over 2,000 calories. We rebounded her, jumping on a mini trampoline. Jumping on a mini trampoline 3 to 5 minutes increases the white cell count 3-fold for 1 hour. So we had her every hour on the hour we had her jumping before she drank her juice. She drank the juice every hour on the hour after she rebounded. Every half hour, on the even hour, she would drink 8 ounces of water. On every half hour on the odd hour, she'd drink 8 ounces of a tea. And you want teas that fight the cancer, build the immune system, and are a blood purifier. Things like chaparral, podiarco, red clover, does all three. Burdock root, all those great stuff. Have we been told to drink red clover every day? Inspiration says drink a cup of red clover every day. And then you can get specific. How many know what poke is? Y'all know what poke is? Poke's poisonous. So what you do is you take that poke root, piece about the size of your thumb, put it in a pot, put a quart of water in there and boil it for 20 minutes. Pour it out. Put another quart of water, boil it for 20 minutes. Pour it out. Those first two are poisonous. That third one, boil it for 20 minutes, strain it. You're going to keep your root out of it, and you drink it throughout the day. Just sip on it throughout the day. Excellent blood purifier, excellent cancer killer. You take the root, and you can grate it like a potato, and you can put some psyllium with it or something, psyllium powder, and make you like a burger, little patty, and you can put it on breast cancer. Mary Lou had breast cancer 9 or 10 years ago, and we aggressively attacked it, and God blessed, and there's no cancer. That's one of the things we use for her. You can use mullein poultices. Take mullein, and y'all know what mullein tea is. Make a tea out of it. They can drink the tea, but make that poultice on it. It's very itchy for breast cancer. It's going to itch the lady. Charcoal poultices. I went up to Michigan and worked with a physician up there who used it for breast cancer and lung cancer. It's charcoal poultices. Castor oil packs. Yes, ma'am. How much water? 1 quart. 1 quart each time. 3 times. You can drink the third one. There's all kinds of teas, and I change the teas every week because the best herbalists out there will say the cancer kind of gets used to it in their theory, and they seem to have better results if you change that tea every week. Asiac tea is an excellent tea. I have them just drink Asiac tea all the time. Asiac tea is excellent. It came from the Native Americans.
You did a story on that.
Yes, yes. Very powerful. Asiac tea came from I think they were from Canada maybe, the Native Americans from Canada, or up in that region. So there's a number of herbs. You can also do enemas with those herbs. Drink the herbs. Do enemas with the herbs. You can absorb it through the colon that way. We also, on this lady, we did hydrotherapy. We did fever treatments. A fever treatment is when you get in a bathtub, you got the water between 105 and 106 degrees. You put the person in it, and once their oral temperature hits 102, you start the clock. You put an ice pack on their head, have them go to the bathroom first. They can sip on water while they're in there. Every little bit, have them take a deep breath, because with the heaviness of the water, the heat water, the hot water, they don't breathe as deep, and their O2 oxygen saturation can drop down 92, 93. Some places put a nasal cannula on them, but just have them take some deep breaths and they'll be fine. Not hyperventilate, but take some deep breaths. Have them sip water about every few minutes. Take their pulse every 5 minutes, their blood pressure every 5 minutes, their temperature every 5 minutes. Make sure it stays within that 102, 104. If it gets up above 104, that's not a problem. They don't have a fever. They're sitting in a double boiler. They're sitting in that bathtub. You just add some cold water and their temperature will come right down. If they get real tacky on you, their heart gets fast, tachycardia, take that bag of ice on their head and stick it on their heart, and the pulse comes right down. Pulse is going to rise when you have a fever. That's just normal. When you're finished, lean them forward. After 30 minutes, lean them forward, pour ice water down the back of their neck, or you can just dash them with cold water. That's what Dr. Charles Thomas did at Loma Linda. He just, cold water. Be careful if they have cardiac issues. Too cold of water can give them some angina. So be careful cardiacs. And then you get them up and you put them in bed for 2 hours. Well, Dr. Thomas said you'd raise the white count 7-fold in this treatment. Well, you know how we are in healthcare. We want to test it ourselves. We're doubters. So we took a bunch of patients that we did fever treatments on. We drew their blood before the treatment. At the end of the treatment, we drew their blood, and actually the white count dropped. Then we dashed them with the water, and the white count went higher than when we started. We're talking just less than 30 seconds. We drew their blood, pulled the needle out, dashed them with the water, put the needle back in, drew the blood again. That fast, less than 30 seconds. Their white count was above what it was before. It had dropped during the treatment, but and then then we drew the labs every 30 minutes for 6 hours. And just as Dr. Thomas said, it peaked at 7-fold at 5 hours consistently. Tremendous. We did that on her. This lady went out and she walked as much as she could walk. Exercise, sunshine, fresh air, clearing her mind. Let me be cautious on that. Clearing the mind, don't just let your mind go blank, that Satan can come in. But just thinking about nature and not worrying about stresses of having cancer or whatever. She went to bed by 9 o'clock at night. She slept outside. It was November and December up in Virginia, up near Washington, D.C. Slept in a sleeping bag because she wanted good fresh air. She went back home end of December, right at Christmas time, went back home, went to the oncologist, and he said, "Ma'am, there's no cancer." Now here's the guy who said, never has this type of cancer ever been cured. And he's now looking at a lady who doesn't have it. And that was 17 years ago this coming November. And she's still alive, doing very well. It's not rocket science. It's really not. What are some other things that we do? I like the juicing. If they can't do 1 cup every hour, do the 16 ounces 3 times a day or 4 times a day.
What type of juice are we talking about?
Vegetable juices, not fruit juices. Now there's those that have a different thought. And I want to believe them. But I'd like to see the research. And when we work in healthcare, we're so prone to believe what the science says, which can be good. But there are doctors out there who will say the fruit juice will be fine. But it is high in fructose. We know with the urinary tract infection, we have better results when we give D-mannose than we give cranberry juice. Cranberry juice, to get enough cranberry juice in the person to equal the D-mannose of 1 teaspoon every hour, and we have significant improvements with UTI, bladder infections, IC, honeymoon syndrome. We find that when we use D-mannose, it's amazing. But the cranberry juice has so much sugar in it. You got an infection. It's going to lower the immune system. So I've still been on the side of going vegetable juice. And a lot of folks will say, go with the greens. That's real strong. And so we'll do kale, spinach, parsley. Parsley is a great detoxer. Cucumbers, celery, little lemon, little ginger, or maybe some carrots, celery. If you do put an apple in there, use a Granny Smith, but use it, sparingly. Yes, sir.
Would it be the same if you just made a smoothie with the same vegetables?
Good question. The question is, what if we did smoothies instead of juices? Smoothies have fiber. When you have the fiber, it takes a lot longer to digest. And a regular meal like what we ate today, probably worse for me, y'all piled my plate high. But a regular meal They tell us, nutritionists tell us it takes as much vital force to digest that food as it does to go to the gym and work out. We're needing that nutrition to fight what's going on. So when you juice, it's in the when you pull that fiber out, it's in the blood within 15 to 20 minutes. You net more energy to fight the cancer. And so that's why we do the juicing. And you also allow the digestive system to rest. Now, you're doing it every hour. You think, Walt, it's not resting. Well, for 15 minutes it's working, but then you put on 45 minutes. But then, Walt, we're not supposed to eat between meals. We're therapeutically attacking this cancer. If you're concerned with that, do the 16 ounces 3 times a day. But we find that juicing just really, really is amazing for attacking the cancer. Yes?
So, for example, with parsley, are you doing straight parsley?
No, ma'am. Oh, we're juicing. Let's say we take 4 sticks of celery, 4 sticks of kale, 4 leaves of kale, 2 handfuls of spinach, 1/4 of a bunch. You know when you go to the store and you buy parsley? Just take a bunch, 25% of that bunch, 1/4 of it, put that in there. Puts you when we do a lot of juicing, I'm finding it's rare, but it does happen. You can have a drop in sodium. And so I don't want that sodium to drop. And I have a good friend who does a lot of juicing. And he's found if he does 4 stalks of celery, he doesn't have that sodium issue. The problem is you got to get it past the tongue. And some people just don't like that much celery. We'll put the 1/4 of a cucumber in there, the ginger, piece of ginger, whatever they can tolerate, 1/4 to 1/2 a lemon in there. Cabbage is really good. Cabbage is real good for fighting cancer. I went to a seminar one time, the nutritionist for the United States Navy SEALs. She was teaching it. And she said that if you would eat a piece of cabbage every day, the size of a hand, whether juiced or raw, you probably would not get cancer. She said it was excellent in fighting cancer, and we find that's good. Yes, sir?
Is there a difference between the red cabbage versus the green cabbage?
Medicinally, that way I don't know, but don't use it for a hemorrhoid poultice. I made that mistake. It ruined the sheets, the blankets, messed the carpet up, the person's clothing. It stained everything. There's a guy from England. He came over because he had hemorrhoids they couldn't fix over there. He came over and we treated him. And one night we were getting ready to do a cabbage poultice. We were out of green cabbage, and I found some red cabbage in the refrigerator in the dietary department. I just took that red one and made it bleed. Said, "Here, stick this on you," and he messed up everything. So I don't do green for that anymore. So I don't. Do you know? Oh, yes, ma'am. Pardon?
Cooking cabbage, we will lose some of the nutrients, so it's best to just do it
Raw. According to that nutritionist with the Navy SEALs, to eat it raw will get the most nutrition. It is true in some foods. You do have better nutrition when you cook it, such as carrots. You have more beta-carotene when you cook it, but the rest of the stuff you lose. Or like tomatoes, the lycopene. You have more lycopene when you cook it, but the rest of the stuff you lose. So some things you do cooking, but for cancer, we're doing raw. Yes, ma'am?
What about apple?
Apple? If we do put an apple in, it's only one, and we'll just put one, and it's a Granny Smith. Now, what about mixing fruits and vegetables? I asked Dr. Agatha Thrash that question. And I said, Dr. Agatha, folks will put an apple in a vegetable juice. Is there a problem? She said, Brother Walt, when you mix fruits and vegetables, it's like a tornado going on in the stomach. She said, but when you take the fiber out and it goes into the blood within 15 minutes, we don't see that problem. But if you leave the fiber in, you can have that in there a couple hours. And she said, then we see, she said, we see that tornado effect. And you've got digestion is different from fruits and vegetables, and so you're dealing with that timing-wise. You had a question? Yes?
I have a question about what you think about chemotherapy and end-stage cancer. So I called the lifestyle center because I had a family member suffering with cancer, and so I asked them about like how they deal with stage 4, end-stage cancer, and they basically said that in that stage you'd have to take chemotherapy and radiation, or else you'd die. Like they couldn't treat naturally at that stage, and so I wanted to ask what your opinion was on that, or if there's a case where chemotherapy and radiation.
You're talking lifestyle centers,
Adventist Medical.
Lifestyle Centers of America, or?
Yeah, in America.
Yes. LCA. They closed.
Not that one. Well, I'm specifically referring to one in Georgia.
At UG.
Wildwood.
Wildwood. Yes, Wildwood. What did we read earlier today? I will say that I've seen folks who've been in stage 4 using natural, and God blesses, and they no longer have cancer. I just have a difference in opinion on that. Yes?
My mother had stage 4 colon cancer, the colon rectum,
Mm-hmm.
and she was told chemotherapy, etc. She ended up doing kind of like what you're saying with whole foods and juicing and everything. And when she ended up having an operation to cut out the cancer, and the doctor opened her up and said that it had shrunk from a stage 4 to a stage 2, and that was only after like 6 weeks of doing some of these things that you're saying. And you kind of think to yourself, well, what happens if she had kept on going?
Yes.
The colon cancer was completely healed. The wall was completely healed, and it was only in the rectum that there was a
Yes.
over of that. And the only reason was because I don't think there was, I know, that there wasn't even an expectation that there was going to be that kind of, she didn't even tell him beforehand, so they were going off of 3 months prior information before he were able to get in and do the surgery, so they didn't even do a follow-up radiology exam or anything. They just went in expecting to find what they had originally found, and that's what they found after. It was about 3 months of her completely off the sugar and doing the juicing.
When we look at lifestyle centers, and I used to be the director of one, there's a disparity even within the Adventist lifestyle centers. You find some that are basically New Start, just doing a whole food plant-based diet, get your exercise, drink your water, go out and be in the sunshine, don't smoke, don't drink, don't watch TV, those kind of things. Get your fresh air, go to bed by 9 o'clock and trust in God. If that's all you're doing, God can heal anything, let me say that. But if you want to be aggressive to fight cancer, you've got to do more than that. And so there's other lifestyle centers. There's one just across the state line over into Alabama, down in Seal, Alabama, who did the juicing, was more aggressive with the herbs, and they found that they were able to attack that cancer more effectively. There was a doctor up in Berlin, New Jersey. He found significant results in fighting cancer by doing juicing, hydrotherapy, by yes, you still do the 8 laws of health, but you're more aggressive than that. And so there are several lifestyle centers that do basic New Start. Hopefully that's what we're doing every day. But to be more aggressive, you've got to do more things. And so some are more aggressive and some aren't. Yes?
He brought up about sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people realize we got to get off refined sugar because it feeds cancer.
You don't want, if a person has cancer, you definitely don't want sugars. And you want to be off refined sugar anyway. It lowers the immune system. And so I tell people, they come in. I had a fella come in, state trooper. And we spent a couple hours talking about his cancer. And I lost him when I told him he couldn't eat his Twinkies no more. And his wife looked at me and she goes, he's not going to give up his Twinkies. And he goes, nope. He died. He would not give up his Twinkies, his sugar. You have to. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. Can you use the watermelon too? Because I heard it said that either eat watermelon alone or leave it alone. Can you juice it with the other?
I've never juiced watermelon for cancer. I don't know. I don't know any statistics on that. Watermelon does have a higher glycemic index. So I don't know if the watermelon would be okay. But yet there's something called the grape cure. And I know a lady who had ovarian cancer, and she was stage 4. And she did the grape cure, and God healed it, and that's grapes. That's a lot of sugar. So I just don't know. I know Dr. M, who's very aggressive, he uses both fruits and vegetables. I just don't, I'm cautious.
I looked at the chart.
Yes?
And they say the melon should not be used with any other fruit.
Melon.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Food combinations. And we don't really work on that much in New Start. But it is, food combinations can be an issue. And there, yes, the question is, should we eat melons with other foods? And it said no. Yeah.
And then lastly, I was reading somewhere where they said that if you do too much cabbage, it could be damaging to the body.
Well, you want to do it in moderation. You don't want to just do only cabbage. You put just a little bit in there. Yes?
I have 2 questions. The first question is, on this green drink that you're talking about for cancer, is it good for most cancers? That's my first question. Is it good for most cancers?
When I asked Dr. Arcilla, who did a lot with cancer, is there a difference in treating different kinds of cancer? And yes, there's some minute differences, but he said it's mostly the same protocol for any kind of cancer. And so he was very, very big on the green juices for all cancers.
Okay. And the green juice you're talking about is the one where you have the parsley, you have the kale, and you have the spinach, the celery, and the cucumber, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other question is this, is that if you're going to treat somebody with this protocol, how often and how long?
First, you pray, because it's not your protocol. And you ask God what you need to do, and He'll tell you. I'm telling you, it works that way. Someone will come in and they'll have this, and academically you say you need to do this, this, and this, and this. But we stop, we pray, and you're impressed to do this, 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 and this. Why? I don't know. It could be that there's something else going on that hasn't been diagnosed yet. It could be that they won't be compliant on that. It could be they can't afford it. I don't know what the cause is. God knows what it is. And if you will listen, people will come in and say, Walt, that protocol you gave, it worked. I have no idea what it was. Because when you pray and you ask God what to do, He will impress you what to do. And maybe some people have really good memories, but I just do what I'm in, go on. Yes, sir.
Can you speak, add a little bit of insight to the chemotherapy question? Because as I understand it, there's really only a couple of diseases that the chemotherapy has a very high efficacy for, the 98%. But it's often prescribed just for everything that's
Right.
called cancer. But there's really only 2 cancers that it really truly is effective for.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just kind of highlight that just a little bit?
It's true. The outcome indicators on chemotherapy are not the best. but it's the only tool they have. Plus, it makes a lot of money. I've talked to oncologists and asked them if they take the chemotherapy. No. Would they give it to their family? Probably no. I believe if time lasts long enough, we will look at chemotherapy the same way we look at bleeding. Remember the old way of bleeding? That's how they killed George Washington. Yes, he had syphilis, but they bled him to death. You look back at the time in the 1800s, doctors had these little pocket knives, like little Swiss Army knives, and they had different blades on them, and they cut them and bleed them. They thought their theory was they had too much blood. Now, is there a problem today with too much blood? There's sometimes like a person has too much iron. Best way to deal with that is probably have them draw blood, to donate blood or whatever. Sorry. But we'll look at that as, we'll look at poisoning people as barbaric, if time lasts long enough, I believe is what we will see. On proton, I don't have enough knowledge on that, so I don't know. I can't speak to that. There's a doctor in North Carolina I've shared with y'all about before. His name is Dr. George Fletches. George Fletches is there at Fletcher, next to the hospital there at Fletcher. And he's a physician, MD. He is finding that lavender oil has the same chemical in it that some of the chemotherapy does. The same result, a natural. And he has found that when a lady comes to him with breast cancer, he applies, according to breast size, on average 1 teaspoon per breast, applies to both breasts, even if it's one side, 4 times a day. Within 3 months, even as much as 2 months, he's seeing significant to all the cancer gone. Now, when you apply an essential oil to the skin, you have evaporation. And so he's now applying some carriers, and you don't have as much, because you'll have around 70-some% evaporation. You can also use some drivers, like DMSO. You don't have to use as much of the lavender, and it will drive in. There's another essential oil that's really getting a lot of notoriety on killing cancer, and that's frankincense. So what I'm recommending is 1-to-1 frankincense to lavender oil.
It's hard to find.
Call me.
Oh,
We got it.
okay.
Any information on black seed oil? Are you familiar with black seed oil?
Yes, black seed oil is good. It is used for cancer. It's also, you know who my biggest buyer of black seed oil is? Women from the islands that live in New York City. They put it on their hair, and it makes their hair real pretty. But it's very, very good for immune system, and it is used for cancer. BLACK, seed, SEED, oil. Yes.
Yeah, they had in the flyer when I first found out about black seed oil, when they were advertising it, it was known for it can cure anything but death.
Yeah, it's used for a lot. I know I've got a fella, he started using it, and he had problem with urine flow. His wife said he could join the fire department now. I mean, it opened him up, and uses it for all kinds of stuff. So yes, it's good for many things.
What would be the dosage?
Start out with 1 teaspoon half a day, half a teaspoon twice a day, a half a teaspoon twice a day, and then go to a teaspoon twice a day. It's nasty tasting.
It is.
Nasty.
We've had several friends over the years with prostate issues. Anything with any of what we're talking about? We tended to just sort of talk about the same kinds of things
Yes.
as normal, but is there anything more specific?
Yes. With prostate cancer, my brother-in-law, he got prostate cancer probably 2 years ago. And I forgot what his PSA was. and he was probably 65. And all he did, let me back up. He trusts in God. He's a Christian fellow. But what he added to that was high pH water. He bought a Kangen machine, started drinking that. Took 1.5 years, but 6 months now he's been prostate cancer free. Cancer does not like high pH. It likes more of an acidic, not an alkaline. We juice folks with prostate cancer. Back in the 1992 or 93, Duke University came out and said that something that significantly exacerbates prostate cancer, and Duke recommended that all patients with prostate cancer discontinue, and that was dairy. And that was back 92 or 93, and said that dairy exacerbates prostate cancer. And they said totally cut it out. Makes sense. It's the most significant carcinogen discovered, according to Cornell.
And what about diabetes? Is there sort of a stabilizing regimen for type 2 diabetes and then a maintenance sort of
Yes.
regimen?
Going back to prostate, we also use saw palmetto, podiarco, pygem, and flaxseed. Now flaxseed is, pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are high in zinc. You're after the zinc. That's good for prostate cancer. You can also do sitz baths, which is a hydrotherapy treatment. You can do fever treatments, which is a hydrotherapy treatment to increase the white cell count. So those are things that we do for prostate cancer. For type 2 diabetes, kind of stepping out of cancer a moment, the root cause is for at least 98% is the cells are too large. What happens is when the cell gets too large, the door doesn't work right on the insulin receptor, which there's many receptors around the cell. It doesn't operate right, and when it gets up there, this mechanism won't work as well, and so cell glucose goes down, blood glucose goes up. The brain says we need more insulin in the cell, so the pancreas produces more insulin. Blood insulin level goes up, still has a challenge here. And so we used to use things like Genema sylvestre, fenugreek, cedarberry, blueberry leaf, peachtree leaf, basil, holy basil. Some people use cinnamon, I don't. Many things that help to normalize, which mostly what's in there is chromium that's really doing the job, and especially the Genema sylvestre, which is considered the best one. It's a chromium. But that's just managing it. I don't want to manage it. I want to reverse it. So what we found is we just shrink the cell. If the problem, the cell is too large, shrink it. So we shrink the cell, door opens up like it's supposed to, glucose goes in, cell glucose goes to normal, blood glucose goes to normal, brain's happy with the cell level, pancreas quits producing as much insulin, and diabetes is reversed. Now how do you shrink the cell? Ideal body weight, BMI, 22, 23. 21 best. 21, 22 is what I like. That's all we did. And people paid us thousands of dollars to come in, and that's all we did. And we had a 98% reversal rate of type 2 diabetes. Now, what makes that function to be insulin resistant, primarily, we found, was where the cell was too large. Inflammation can also do that. And so that's a minority. And so you've got to get the inflammation down. And how do we do that? What causes the inflammation to go up? Yeah, it could be dehydration, it could be stress, omega-6s, especially in the South. We fry everything from our maters to our taters. And you just fry everything. And so that omega-6, your sugar, just all kinds of stuff that can increase that inflammation. Get that inflammation down. And that can also help. Now, Dr. Agatha, what she would do on that 2% or less that she couldn't get them to reverse just by shrinking the cell, she would put them on a water fast for 5 days, sometimes 7. Usually 5 days, just only water. Maybe some, if they needed it, she let them drink some teas, herbal teas. And in that fasting process, she was able to knock some of those that we couldn't get reversed before. Yes, sir.
When it comes to like pumpkin seed, and a lot of the sunflower seed now, you gotta be careful because I haven't bought pumpkin seed or sunflower seed in a long time because most of it they're finding coming from China.
China, that is correct.
They may say USA organic, but those just everything coming from China.
Very difficult to get pumpkin seed other than China. You're right. So, as we're looking at attacking the cancer, we're also using essential oils, whether it's the lavender oil or the frankincense. Frankincense is phenomenal. It's just the best all-around essential oil, I believe. And there's, you can take frankincense and the lavender 1-to-1, equal parts. So you take a roller ball. Y'all know what a roller ball is. Like a deodorant ball, but it's a little roller ball about this big. And it's a glass, and it's got either a glass or a metal ball. You don't want a plastic ball. Take the top off, fill it 1/4 full of lavender, 1/4 full of frankincense, and then the rest of fractionated coconut oil, which is a good carrier. And then mix it up, and then rub it. Let's say we're finding that people who have, female cancers, just rub it over that region where that cancer is 4 times a day. Plus, I encourage the juicing and the hydrotherapy and that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
As far as brain cancer is concerned, when you're talking about brain cancer, which area of the brain does it attack? Does cancer attack? And what is the best
Treatment for brain cancer? Yes. Going back to her question, 25% of each of the oils and 50% of the fractionated coconut oil. So frankincense and lavender. For brain cancer, there's a physician up in Virginia that had brain cancer, and he used frankincense, put it on his thumb, put it on the roof of his mouth, just 1 drop, and held it there for 2 minutes. He also put it on the base of his skull right here. And then he used something called DDR prime, which also it's a combination of essential oils, including frankincense. And it's gone. The brain cancer is gone. Frankincense will go across the blood-brain barrier. Dr. Ted Watkins, surgeon in Washington, D.C., I spoke with the man who had this cancer. Watkins put him on with me so I could talk to him. And he had brain cancer. And what he did is he used food-grade hydrogen peroxide, which is 35%. Depending on what stage it is, if it's really bad, you want to get to 50 drops 3 times a day as quick as possible. But if not, slowly increase each day. Use about 5 or 6 ounces of distilled water on an empty stomach. If it bothers you, you can take some aloe vera, ginger, and that can help calm it down when it hits the stomach. But you just increase each day, 3 times a day. You can get sick. It can make you what's called a Hertz syndrome, especially if you have yeast, and you'll have a die-off. And so you'll get a little nauseous, like flu-like symptoms for 3 or 4 days. But the goal is to get up to 50 drops 3 times a day. Stay there until the cancer is gone, at least 30 days, and then come back down.
So when you're using frankincense internally, how often do you say you use it?
You're doing the frankincense internally several times a day, and then you're putting it on the back of the brain, back here several times a day. You can actually just roller a ball right back here. I do it 4 times a day in the back. Yeah. And that gentleman I talked to, the food-grade hydrogen peroxide wiped out the brain cancer. It's a lot of oxygen, increases oxygenation.
So that same type of brain cancer that Senator McCain had, it'll even take care of that, because that's one of the most aggressive cancers, and that's the same type of cancer that runs in our family?
I don't know. I don't have any statistics to say. If it would, I'd definitely try it. I sure would. Coenzyme Q10 is also used for cancer treatment. It increases oxygenation. Yes, ma'am.
I have frankincense in the curry oil I use is castor oil. Is that okay?
The castor oil, it probably would. With essential oils?
Yes.
I think so. We use grapeseed oil, jojoba oil. I use the fractionated coconut oil a lot, but I like castor oil, and I use castor oil packs for brain cancer. I mean, for cancer, any type of cancer. Yes, sir.
Where do you get the fraction of
You can get it at Walmart. You can get coconut oil, a health food store. The reason you want it fractionated is because regular coconut oil, it will get hard if it gets below, say, 80 degrees. If you have it warmer, then it's liquid. But if it's like right now, it's not. It's going to get hard in here, and it's not going to work in the roller ball. So you fractionate it so that it will still roll. There's a new thing that I'm using. And I learned about it about a year ago. I got a phone call from China. And they said, you got to try this. It's getting rid of cancer in hospitals. And it's approved by it's in a medical device in China. In Japan and in Korea, they're using it. It's an approved medical device, and it's reversing cardiovascular disease. The cardiologists are using it in China, in Japan, and in Korea. But it was too expensive. And then I have a friend who's out in Dr. Chester Clark, who's over in Arkansas. I was talking with him about some other issues, and I said, tell me about this machine. I said, they're using it in China for getting rid of cancer. What do you think? He says, I have one. I said, how'd you afford it? He said, it's not a medical device here. So it's 1/10 of a cost, 1/10 of the cost. And so I started getting them. I have a lady right now has breast cancer, and she's doing it 15 minutes twice a day. Within 2 weeks, she went back to the doc, and her cancer markers had reduced. And what it is far infrared. Far infrared. You've got mid-infrared, you have near infrared, but this is far infrared. And you can do a cabinet, which looks like a steam bath, or you can have a far infrared light. It's on a little roller thing, looks like a doctor's chair, a bunch of wheels on it. And put it directly on the area for 15 minutes, and then put them in the cabinet. I have a friend, Dr. George Kim. He's internal medicine in Tryon, North Carolina. And he's built a whole new room onto his practice. He's found it's working tremendously. He had a friend come in who's a physician who has cancer. The pain with the max pain meds was still so bad he claimed it was a 9 of 10. He couldn't even eat. He was losing weight. So George put him in the far infrared 15 minutes twice a day. Within 2 minutes, he was totally off his pain meds, and the pain was manageable. He was able to eat, and he gained 5 pounds. He had gained 5 pounds in the 2-week period. What's that?
What do you think about the yellow charged water?
The what?
Yellow charged water.
Yellow charged water?
Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay. I was reading something, and this lady was saying that you can use that. You just get water that you can drink, and you put like a yellow paper on it and put it out in the sun, and that is supposed to be good for cancer and revitalize the body and stuff.
I'm not familiar with it, no.
Okay.
Hyssop? Yes. The Bible talks about purging with hyssop. David talks about that. Hyssop is good for, one of the things it does, it can help purge, detox the body. Yeah. There's different far infrareds.
This is the one that Dr. Tate.
Yes, that's the one I use. Yeah, to get the treatment.
No, I just go there to just relax.
Oh,
But I just go there and get to do everything that they have there.
yes. Yes, it'll range $15 to $25, $30 for 15, 30 minutes.
24 hours.
Oh, for 24 hours. What a deal.
24 hours.
Okay. You want it at least 1400 watts. Now they do have far infrareds that are at Walmart and different places that are much more economical, but they're not strong, they're not the medical strength. You need 1500 watt machine is what you're looking for. And she was on her phone right there. You can see a picture of it. If it's that high, if it's that strong, then it's going to do the job. Now you can go to NIH, National Institute of Health, and look up NIH, and it will, just all kinds of things, from cancer to cardiac. Let's say if you have a patient who has on hemodialysis and their shunt has a propensity to occlude, and so you have to go in and do angioplasty. Well, they found, according to NIH, putting this patient in here, it opens that back up, and they don't have to do the angioplasty. According to NIH, you can use it for Raynaud's. It's working for Raynaud's disease. They find that it causes microcirculation. It increases better perfusion of the blood into the cells. It's also angiogenic. It's amazing. Yes.
Any comment on Lyme's disease?
Yes. My son got Lyme's disease. He's 24. He got Lyme's disease in 2003. We tried all kinds of things, and it just would not work. When he was 18, he could not run from me to you without falling down and crying. He was a firefighter. He couldn't firefight. And it was extreme pain in his heart, in his legs, headaches. And I found something about 10 years ago that we started using on MRSA, and it wipes out MRSA. Gone. It even can work on VRSA in some cases, not as good as MRSA. In 10 years, I sell it to physicians all over the United States. I get it from England. And in 10 years, we haven't had one case that we've worked with, or any of the physicians report any cases they've had of MRSA not totally going away. Now, you get Vanc to do that. It won't. Vancomycin won't do that. You use 1 teaspoon twice a day for 3 months. That's 2,240 cloves of garlic per teaspoon. It's just the allicin. So it's very strong. It takes 24 cloves to make 1 drop. About 2 months ago, we were talking earlier, I got an infection in my tooth. I had a crown that got loose, broke the tooth underneath, got loose. And then it just got worse, and I looked like a chipmunk. So I went over to the dentist, and he said, "Walt, I can't touch it. It's got to get rid of that infection first." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I got an antibiotic." He said, "It won't work." And he said, "You have to use this antibiotic." I said, "How long will it take?" He said, 7 days. I said, "Okay, no sense in arguing." So I went home, threw the prescription away. I used a tablespoon of the Alimed 3 times a day. I did the frankincense every 2 hours, and in 3 days, the infection and pain was totally gone. And he was able to work on the tooth in just 3 days. C. diff, H. pylori, wipes it out. And so you do 1 teaspoon twice a day for the Lymes for 3 months. You also want to do a good parasite cleanse. It's better to be raw, no sugar, and that's the best thing we found for Lyme.
What's it called again?
It's called Allimed, A-L-L-I-M-E-D. It's Allison. Lyme has a propensity to go and hide. And so when you're contiguous for 3 months, 1 teaspoon twice a day, that's the best thing. And my son we just went down to Florida last week, and I asked him, I said, Carson, have you had any more symptoms on that Lyme lately? He said, Dad, it's been 5 years since I've had any symptoms of the Lyme. So it's working well. Yes, sir. Allimed, A-L-L-I-M-E-D, A-L-L-I-M-E-D. You can go to NIH. Yes. You can go to NIH, and there's over 200 articles on it at NIH. They find that it's antibacterial, antiviral, antiparasitic, antifungal, and antimicrobial. It's very, very powerful. Yes?
I was just going to say with Allimed that I take about a teaspoon almost every day as a preventative. And if I have even a hint of a cold coming on, you take that.
It's gone.
Deborah Smith that goes to this church here, she called me up. She said, I'm tired of playing games. I want to know what you're taking. So she had some, and she did 1 tablespoon. She had a very, very serious cold coming on. She had 1 tablespoon of that stuff. Next day, she was done.
Yes. That's what I use. I hit it hard. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, I wanted to say, you've come here so many times, you know, and give us all this information. Can you make a small booklet or something like that so that we can not for free?
I'm working on that right now. I'm working on that as we speak. I encourage you, some of you have gone to it already. I got a call last year from Amazing Discoveries, and they asked me to come do a program for them. And so I did 6 different videos for them. And one of them that you probably like is the one that is called Kitchen Medicine. But just YouTube, Amazing Discoveries, Walt Cross. And there's 6 of them there. And I get so many phone calls now from Australia, from just all over. Do you have a book? So I'm working on it. I'm getting ready to go back in December and do another 6 videos for them. And that'll come out next year. And I'll do essential oils and several different things in that one. Yes, ma'am?
Where can we get the Allimed?
It's Sabbath. Talk to Roy. Roy can point you in the right direction. There's a place that you can get it significantly less than anywhere else. Yes, sir.
Stroke,
Yes.
efficacy, I mean, just any sort of from cause to effect, are there any things that can be done to mitigate it? Number one, anything can be done to treat the symptoms, however.
Yes.
From mild to.
Bless you.
If you know that the person has atherosclerosis, now you're looking at two issues: atherosclerosis, or for a clot, or you're looking for an aneurysm. 2 different issues. Clot. So if you know they have a propensity for atherosclerosis, the first thing to do is the Duke diet. It is the best diet in the world for reversing atherosclerosis, reversing heart disease, cardiovascular disease in general. Duke, D-U-K-E, Duke University. It's called the Rice Diet, R-I-C-E. Dr. Walter Kempner started it in 1934. He was German. He was a scientist and an MD. At that time, he started working on it for malignant hypertension. And then he found it worked for many other things. Duke has been doing it now for 83 years. It will cost you $6,500 a month, plus a room fee, plus a gym fee. And here's what it is. It is the best. I haven't found anything better. It's 1 cup of brown rice, 3 servings of fruit. A serving is each apple, orange, pear, or a half a cup of strawberries, little things, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. That's a serving, 3 servings. And do that all 3 meals the first month. The second month, you can do for the noon meal, you can do the 1 cup of brown rice and a salad. No dressing, no oil, no salt, no cheese, no meat. Now, I found that we can kind of push that. And so right off, we'll do the 1 cup of brown rice and 3 fruit for breakfast, 1 cup of brown rice and a salad for noon, and 1 cup of brown rice and 3 fruit for supper. Also, they'll do exercise 4 times a day. Now, they do an hour 4 times a day. Obviously, not everybody can do an hour at a time, but they're at least in the gym as much as they can do in that hour 4 times a day. Not everybody can do that, obviously, our work schedule. So I encourage people just to do an hour, 15 minutes 4 times a day. And to do, if they can, to do interval training or intermittent training. Where the heart is a muscle, even though it's a muscle solely like of its own. There's 2 other types of muscles, but the heart is the only muscle of its type, but it's still a muscle. And in weightlifting, we don't just a guy go down there and start bench pressing 300-400 pounds straight for 30 minutes. He'll do reps. So in the late 90s to the early 2000s, cardiologists and exercise physiology started experimenting with the IT. Now you can go highfalutin. You can go 220 minus your age, and then take a percent, say 65% of that, and then you take 5 beats above and 5 beats below, and you stay in that target range. Which that's awful confusing. And plus people don't have the equipment to do that. So all you do is just do 3 minutes fast, 1 minute slow. 3 minutes, decent pace. 3, 1, 3, 1. And we found that our patients that came into us, our cardiac patients who came in, who had had stents, bypass, before we may get 10 minutes out of them in walking. By doing this, we could get 30 minutes out of them walking. Now, you have to watch. We'd walk with our patients, and you go to the stroll, and we had a device you could measure. It went across their chest, and we could measure. And you saw that the pulse was not going down, even when they went to a stroll. And you say, well, let's just stop. They stop. And the pulse still wouldn't go down. And I'd say, Henry, what are you thinking about? You thinking about work? You thinking about your wife? Thinking about bills? Yeah. Did you see that bird over there? Or that squirrel? Or look at that. Isn't that a beautiful tree? It'd come right back down. It was amazing how this would keep that pulse up. So I encourage people to do 15 minutes 4 times a day. If you went to Dr. Ted Watkins, how many of y'all know Watkins? There's some here that know Watkins. If you went to Watkins, he would tell you, I want at least an hour out of you, but I want an hour and a half. But really, I want 2 hours out of you. Because we found when Watkins and I worked together with our patients, we had the best success on the patients who exercised an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. That was the best. But they were at a lifestyle center and they had time to do it. Not everybody can do that. But if you can at least do 15 minutes 4 times a day and then build as you can, it really helps. Water. I was listening to a cardiologist one day and he said, the best blood thinner in the world is water. Water causes the blood to be thicker and stickier. Also, when you skip breakfast, you increase your risk of a heart attack and a stroke by 150%. 150% according to Neil Nedley. Nedley says you need to eat it within 2 hours of awaking because it affects the platelets. The breakfast thins them out. A cardiologist will tell you today, as soon as you wake up in the morning, drink water. Before you go to bed, drink water. But be careful, it doesn't wake you up all night. But that water helps to thin the blood. For atherosclerosis, I had a lady come in one time and both carotids were 75% occluded. And I encouraged her to take 1 tablespoon twice a day of non-GMO lecithin granules. Now I do 1 tablespoon 3 times a day. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about lecithin made from sunflower seeds?
Pardon?
Lecithin made from sunflower seeds.
Sunflower? Yes, it's good. You got sunflower lecithin and you have soy lecithin. And the research appears to be a little better on the soy lecithin. But most of the research is done most of the research is, it seems to be the sunflower lecithin is better, but most of the research is done on the soy lecithin. I call it liquid Drano. Because that lady, she only did 1 tablespoon twice a day for 2 months, and her occlusion went down to 25% in both carotids. In 2 months, she went from mid-70s to the mid-20s. Phenomenal. It's very, very good. Yes, sir.
Can you comment on this alkaline water that's now being sold in stores? And any recommendations, cautions,
Yes, I do have caution. The alkaline water appears to be doing well with helping with, such as I mentioned my brother-in-law. I have many folks that tell me that they feel better. Obviously, that's anecdotal. We can definitely measure his prostate cancer is totally gone. The thing that I would warn on alkaline water is the pH. The pH is high, 9.5, and if you use it during a meal or when food is still in the stomach hydrochloric acid should be between 0 and 1. Now, obviously, we're not supposed to be drinking with meals, but there are people who do. So if you take alkaline water and put that high pH water in the stomach at mealtime, it's going to pull that pH up. 2 things will happen. One is to do a proper breakdown of hydrochloric acid, it needs to be at that 0 or 1 to break down that component that takes place in the stomach. Then as it moves into the small intestines, into the duodenum, into the small intestines there, it needs to have a low pH to stimulate the pancreatic enzymes to come in, which will raise it on up. So if you don't have an adequate low pH, it doesn't adequately stimulate the pancreatic enzymes. And that's just basic nutrition class will teach you that. So I encourage people not to drink or cook with alkaline water. If you're going to do it, the hour before, 15, 30 minutes before, hour during to an hour after. They can do the alkaline the other times, but don't do it during the time of digestion. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a natural way to alkaline your own water? Because I've heard that lemon juice or lime juice is that...
Lemon juice will help. Yes, it sure will. And we have counsel on that. We're told to drink, we talked about the red clover. We're also told to drink lemon water every morning. And that's told to us in inspiration.
One other question,
Yes.
sorry. Regarding the breakfast, smoothies wouldn't count as breakfast, would it?
Will smoothies count as breakfast? Inspiration says that breakfast should be the best meal of the day. Eat breakfast like a king, dinner like a queen, supper like a pauper. If you do a smoothie, there's some people I'm happy for them to do a smoothie because they don't eat anything for breakfast. Plan A is the best. I have people aren't even on the alphabet. They don't eat fruit, they don't eat vegetables, except they may eat potatoes in the form of French fries and potato chips. And that's their vegetable, only vegetable they will eat. It's crazy. How does a person not want to eat fruit? I just don't understand it, but I have them. So if you did a smoothie for breakfast, you probably want more than just the smoothie to meet that criteria of breakfast like a king. And again, you can have all the science in the world, but when inspiration says breakfast like a king, dinner like a queen, supper like a pauper, I'm not arguing. They say we want evidence-based medicine. God is evidence-based to me. Yeah. Roy.
Yeah, 2 points. Maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
Second point is this: if I pack a smoothie with all kinds of nuts and everything else in there, would that count as a? Now, I'm packing, let's say 2,000 calories or whatever, with all kinds of stuff in this. Would that not count for breakfast?
You can make some good smoothies with nuts and what all. You know, I like seeing oatmeal or yellow corn grits and some nuts and some fruit. And because in a smoothie, you're going to put maybe 2 servings of fruit. You'd like at least 3 servings of fruit with breakfast. But it's better than most folks are doing to drink that good smoothie. And again, let me back up. You don't want to drink the smoothie. You want to chew the smoothie. You want to chew the juice. Because you've got to pump more saliva in, and we've talked about this before here, as you chew, you produce more saliva, and the saliva has the amylase and the protease and all those chainsaws that start breaking, especially the proteins down. And we're not cows, and so we don't chew our cud. It's hopefully not coming back up another time. And so you got one chance for that process to take place. So you want to chew that smoothie really good for maybe 5-10 seconds to pump that saliva in there, to get those chainsaws ripping that first stage of digestion down that happens in the stomach. And the same thing's true with juices. You want to chew your juices. Yes, ma'am.
What were those 3 fruits again to go with the rice diet?
It does just 3 servings. Now, to go back to diabetes, the Duke diet, Dr. Kempner found it was good for cardiovascular disease. Then he found it was good for renal failure. I had a lady come in several months ago. She's 33 years old. She's been on dialysis since she was 15. She had a creatinine of 11. Her potassium was out the wall. Her phosphorus was out the wall. And she said, what can I do? And so I encouraged her to do the Duke diet. I also encouraged her to do a couple other things that I'd hoped that she would do and she did not do. And that is 3 caps of activated charcoal twice a day, CoQ10 100 milligrams twice a day, exercising, raw food. And she was eating a whole food plant-based diet already, but she wasn't getting the exercise. Corn silk tea, a quart of corn silk tea a day. All she did was a Duke diet. She came back a month later and told me that her labs in 1 month, her creatinine dropped to 6 from 11. Her potassium and phosphorus were in normal range. Amazing what Kempner found for renal. He also found it helps people lose weight. I met a lady at Duke who lost over 200, right at 200 pounds. Well, so if they lose weight, what else is that going to help with? Diabetes. And so they use it a lot at Duke for diabetes, and so I use it a lot for diabetes. Except at Duke, if they go in there to the dining room, they hand them a bowl of brown rice, they can pick 3 fruit. The only restriction of any of their patients, any of the diagnosis is to diabetics, and the fruit has to be Granny Smith. The apple has to be Granny Smith. Otherwise, it's fair game. Yes, ma'am.
Would you please go over the Duke University diet and the listing?
Yes, 1 cup of brown rice, 3 servings of fruit for breakfast, 1 cup of brown rice, and a salad for dinner. Now, dinner's the noon meal. And so when I'm talking salad, I mean, you can have onions and carrots and celery and cucumbers and you can have lettuce and broccoli and cauliflower and pepper, all kinds of vegetables in that. Just a nice good salad, but no dressing, no salt. If you did salt, maybe a touch of say a sea salt or like a Himalayan, just not Morton salt. That's the bad stuff, the Morton salt. Now, at Duke they'll allow them to put lemon juice on it, But I'm now finding, I'm looking for compliance. It's just hard to get compliance with people today because they eat Hardee's, they eat McDonald's. And so I'm trying, is there any negotiation that we can do that's healthy? And so I found that if they have a good, healthy, homemade salsa, if it does have salt in it, it's sea salt, and it's very little, they can put the salsa on there and they'll be okay. I know it's out of scope because it's got tomatoes. What's a tomato? It's a fruit. Who claimed that tomatoes was a vegetable? Congress. Years ago. The tomato industry had a very strong lobbying group, and fruit had a higher tax rate than vegetables. And the tomato, and I want to say they were like in New Orleans where their lobbying group was out of, somewhere down in that section of the country. They went to Congress and lobbied and got Congress to change it from a fruit to a vegetable so it was classified at a lower tax. But tomato is a fruit. So that's a challenge there. But again, I'm negotiating with these people, trying to figure out something. And then for supper, 1 cup of brown rice and 3 fruit. Well, guys, we're out of time. Yes?
May I mix beets and carrots together?
Beets and carrots?
Yes.
I don't know of a problem not to. I make it in juices and I put it in salads. Well, y'all, we've run out of time. I'll have to touch base because we only have so much time in here. Roy, would you close with prayer?
How many were thankful? Don't say you got dead. Hold on. That's better. How many were thankful for this last session? Amen? Now, I know many of you were writing as fast as you could. Don't forget AdventHopeAtlanta.org. Go to our YouTube channel, and you can watch this in a couple, probably by tomorrow. All right, you can rewatch it, take all the notes you want to take, a lot of good information. I asked the question about cancer, Walt, because I had somebody watching from Europe. They had stage 4 cancer. I believe it was of it was colon, it was somewhere in the lower abdominal section, and they wanted to have some answers, so you were able to help them out. So
Good.
that's good. Yes. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, as we come to you once again, we want to thank you for bringing Walt to us today and helping us to be able to listen and to learn and ask questions about the various different ailments we might have, or we might have friends or family that have these ailments. And dear Lord, he has learned this stuff from just studying, from doing diagnostic work, and from doing research. And right now we have available to us the internet. We can do the same exact thing. Lord, many of us are hurting in many different ways, physically, and just ask that we would take these things that we've learned today and go back and just study for ourselves so we can share this with others. Because that is one of the main arms of reaching and teaching the gospel to those that don't know. Be with us now as we depart. Help us have a rest of the wonderful Sabbath, and remember that it is your day. For asking your name, amen. You are dismissed.